All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Rotimi Eyitayo, and I just want to spend some time to have a session on Edvestigate Live. As we promised, every week we're going to be here and also to share our experience and also to teach and talk about what we are actually about. I'm currently out of town and I've been trying to connect online for a while. We meant to have this session for 5 p.m. and the network has been a bit of a challenge trying to log on or to go live and share with you. But then at some point in time, almost while giving up and trying to record a video to post just to ensure that we're here, I just discovered that I had access to a network around the corner, and then I was able to leverage on that and then also just come live just to show the power of consistency and to keep our promise that we'll always be there. Interestingly, I'm seeing, interesting. Hello, Tomilola, Dr. Tomilola, how are you? All the way from the UK. It's good to see you join us. Dr. Vivian Davids, good to have you here. And our great Tomiwa, I'm still looking out to get across to you this year. And so I will spend some time. I might not be able to spend too long a time online because you can't determine how the network is, but I will try as much as possible to be of help to questions that probably might have not been answered by the first session. And I'm sure some people might join us and will be wondering what exactly is Edvestigate about? What came about the name? What's the solution that we're trying to preach? And the first three sessions that we'll be having, we'll just be talking about why this platform, why this solution, why this organization, and the likes. And you'll recall, if you were part of those who were with us online last week when we decided to kickstart this session, you'll recall that we spent a lot of time talking about some of the prevailing issues within the education space, especially things that have to bother around professionalism. We discussed around the issue of career transitioning that is not being done right, and the effect that it's actually having adverse effect on people. Employers can't plan, professional development is being hampered and the likes. I am restless because I must see you. Tommy, thank you very much for that. And so we decided to take a step than just being masters of concerns or masters of dissecting issues, masters of complaints, to become masters of solution. And what led to Edvestigate is simple. We said there is need for us to begin to investigate the concerns within education, and that was what gave birth to the name Education Investigation. Education Investigation is bringing it together to say Edvestigate, and not just to think or discover the problems, but to quickly try as much as possible to mobilize solutions to the problems that exist. And interestingly, a like-minded person and someone who is known for our pursuit and doesn't muck about, Ronke Posh Adeni, we sat down together in the bid of having this concern to be of solution, to put our signature to something that solves certain problems, was what gave birth to the organization and the solution. And we decided to ensure that as many people who are like-minded, like some of you who are already online, we would team up as a formidable force to ensuring that sanity comes into the sector, sanity comes into the industries within the sector, and sanity comes into the businesses and the professionals within the sector. And Edvestigate will be championing this through the use of several interventions. And some of these interventions basically would cut across some things that we're already familiar with, but will take some time to also flip the coin and ensure that such interventions are not just surface level interventions, but they run deep down to create some root effects to address the cause effect. We're going to be able to spend some time to provide surveys and reports so that the issue of ignorance is tackled both from the top level, mid-level, and the low level. Because what we've come to realize is that ignorance has now become an industry within the education space. And a lot of times, some people manage a lot to also thrive on that ignorance, also create some level of income from that ignorance. We cannot stop that. We cannot hinder that. But we can stem the tide and introduce some level of discovery and information around that. Thank you, Akim Benjamin. I see Akim Benjamin. I see Elizabeth online. Lizzie, thank you for joining. Also trying to help us understand that, you see, when the purpose of something is known, it's now going to be leverage becomes inevitable, because normally we're told that when the purpose of something is not known, abuse becomes inevitable. Now, when we introduce the purpose of something, it creates leverage. The absence of the purpose of that thing creates abuse. And when we said we're going to start and champion Edvestigate, we decided to say that people need to know the purpose, because sometimes we keep on having some pop-ups from some trendy things that happen within the education space. They come as a result, or they come in form of programs, they come in form of projects and initiatives, they come in form of advocacy and the likes. And sometimes a lot of people don't know why, and a lot of people think it's just a fad, it's just like a facade. Some people think it's just a publicity stunt to stay relevant and to stay up on the food chain level of earnings within the industry. But it's much more than that, you understand. It's something that you need to understand. In fact, for as many who spend time, skill, sacrifice years of experience, and sometimes put investment into the sector, you will need to understand that your investment is at stake, your time is at stake, your resources are at stake, even your ambition and goals. You're building 5-year plans. This is a season when a lot of people are setting goals. If you keep setting goals in an unorganized or inorganized sector, those goals already are likely not to come to pass. That's the honest truth. Those goals might not see the light of day. Why? Because the quality of standardization and professionalism creates a conducive or a level of enablement for the eventual actualization of the goals. There are many value ambassadors within education space. There are many solid experts within the education space. There are many people who are enabling the processes and the business within the education space. However, the challenge of actualizing that, or the growth of what they are doing, is at risk because we are practicing the system of education as if we're in a jungle. Most of us need to realize that some of these things we see, sometimes we're privileged to hear stories on Facebook. We're privileged to hear stories on pages of groups that are dedicated to, champion something or the other. And we take some of these things into debates. We laugh about it. We sigh about it. We challenge each other about it. But we need to understand that it's time for us not just to talk, but to plug in. And that's one of the things Edvestigate is trying to do. We're trying to ensure that we begin to act as a lively conscience, a conscience that comes alive, that begins to say, you know what? Could it be that we don't know what it takes, or could it be that we were not just informed what it takes that to do certain things, and the easiest thing that comes into mind is how to get a job, why to get a job, how to stay in that job, grow in that job, thrive in that job, and all this how to. A lot of times the way and the manner of approach, and sometimes the frustration in the pursuit of such approach, shows to a lot of us who have discerning eyes that a lot of people are advancing careers in ignorance. And thank you. Tomoa said, education industry does not deserve the present lack of structure. Well, you see, that's absolutely true. We don't deserve it. But you see, when you say something about deserving or not deserving, it comes to a point where we're talking about, has it happened? Yes, it has happened. Should it continue to happen? No, it shouldn't. That's the reason why we said that we would dedicate a platform and an organization that would champion these things. Just let me paint a picture in your mind, if I may please. Just answer this question at the back of your mind. How many teachers do we think we have in the education space in Nigeria? Maybe that might be a bit too big a poser to you, but I recognize that some of you that are online, Oluwa Sheon Fumi Gold, how are you? Thank you for coming online. And thank you. I think Lucy is also online. Great to have you here. Now, let's just think about it. Some of us are familiar with the state called Lagos State, and I would like to paint a picture. How many teachers do you think exist in Lagos State? Right? We're not talking about how many teachers are best teachers or how many teachers are the most qualified teachers. Just a teacher, one who engages the teaching profession, or one who has a job and his assignment or his core assignment is in the place of teaching. How many teachers do we think we have? Now, if you are right, just as my guess is right, you would discover that they are running into hundreds of thousands. Because sometimes when you look at the statistics available, you'll find out that sometimes, if you just look at the public space, we have about 1,700 public schools in Lagos State. Now, if you have 1,700 public schools in Lagos, let's just take an average that each school has 5 teachers. That's 1,700 times 5. Automatically, you already know your numbers. Now, let's come to the private school space. It's said from different statistics available to us that it's running over 10,000 to 15,000 to 18,000 private schools. Now, if you have, let's just take an average. Let's say it's 10,000. It's much more than that. But if it's 10,000 schools that are called private schools and are registered, let's also imagine that in each of those 10,000 schools, there's an average of, let's say, 5 teachers in those schools. In other words, 10,000 times 5. It means that just the private school space, the private school space houses close to about 50,000 plus, and that's an estimate. In fact, it's a big time average. Now, think about it. The public school, the private school, Lagos only, and that's talking about 60,000 people. Let's take this. Sorry, wait. I'm trying to make sure we don't have interruptions online. I had a call. Let's imagine that number was going to be flipped over. So let's think about it this way. How many of the 50,000 plus are actually, thoroughly trained? How many of those 50,000 plus are in the organizations that they work in, whether in the public school space or the private school space, in the right way? How many of them, I think Tomila says, how are we able to champion the change? Interesting. I'll get to that. But these are questions that by the time you begin to answer them with figures, it's not just to say, well, there's a problem in education, but tie that problem to numbers. Then you begin to see the enormity of the situation on ground. You begin to see the need for us to take actions and steps immediately. You begin to see the challenge that exists, right? And how we need to tackle it. And that's why there are certain things that cannot just happen on over a conversation. Some things will have to happen as an initiative and an intervention. And as they happen, we need to understand that so many experts, even like some of you that are commenting already, you need to strategically position yourself, not just for personal leverage or profiting, but to be able to create some level of standardization through help, through solutions, through value-added services as well. And that is the only truth that will set the sector free. And so one of the things we decided to do is at Edvestigate to begin to champion those things. We've heard so many silly stories and saddening stories between, it's as if we are brooding and breeding war between the owners of schools and the teachers in schools. It's like the employer versus the employee. There's always a war. You can't grow a sector not seeing that kind of mentality. That mentality has to change, and that's why when you begin to find out that you can report good services and you can report bad services through mediums and platforms like Edvestigate, we begin to stem the tide. When we begin to understand that we need to begin to verify both the employee and the employer, that is also a tool that will also help us to tackle some of the things that we have issues with. We need to verify the employer. We need to know that it's not just anyone you should be able to go to. And so the prospective employee should be able to find some level of support or solution that gets them to help them know, is this the kind of person I should work with? Is this the kind of person I should work for? Is there any form of antecedent? Is there any red flag? Should I look further? Should I ask more questions? By the way, beyond asking what I would earn, what are the things I should ask when I'm going into employment relationship with an individual or with an organization? And then also for those who are employing people, so that you not sacrifice the culture at stake, the future of the organization, the climate in the organization, and the performance that you seek and desire. What kind of person should I employ? Where should I get them? How should I get them? In what level can I create an integration? Shouldn't I ask certain questions? Where are they coming from? Why did they leave? All this and many more are some of the things that we tend to provide solution for. And I'm excited that, okay, we said, you know what? Now we've created a Facebook group, we've created an Instagram page where we'll be able to communicate some of these things through live sessions like this, through, constructed content and documents, articles and posts. We also have an opportunity where we can now get people to directly engage with us. And so if you're, I'm sure looking at the page, you would have noticed that I was able to put out a form out there, which you can easily preliminarily say, you know what, as an individual or as an employer, I can connect with, and then, register and start the journey. Now, the form is just the first level of engagement, where we will now reach out to you as case specifics and all that, so that we can easily engage you and tell you, okay, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to come on board and start this journey together. And this is how it is. And in answer to the question Dr. Tomilola said, how do we champion change? Simply like what we're doing. This step is a step that champions change. What would have done before would have been to just put some statements behind the post, I got so, and that's the end. But you see, we're taking steps and we're trying to model change so that we move away from thinking that change is just a monument where we point at, where we say it's not meant to be, where we say look at Finland, we say look at Singapore, we say look at US, we say look at UK. All those things will not change anything. In fact, it makes the situation look hopeless. For a fact, I believe that the first level of change is not a change of reference or comparison. I repeat, the first level of change is not a change of reference, is not in any level of comparison, because most times that step begins to abuse the context of the now. That step begins to abuse the social reality within our space. We need to look at it and say, what's prevalent within our culture? What is particular to us? And how do we employ and deploy situations and solutions that addresses the concerns in the now, in the immediate? We need a point of inflection to be able to do that. And I'm excited. Thank you, Nancy, for coming online. That's a great person as well, doing amazing things. These are ways with which we can champion change. All the people on our timeline, Mobola, Lola Neke, Dr. Lola Neke, great people, and they are doing these things, not only for profit. Yes, and I'm not against profit. In fact, doing good is business. There's business in doing good. I have been able to help people, coach people in that. But as a matter of concern, we need to drum it into our ears that we need to take steps, and if you are a person out there that's been a victim of a non-professional space, this is a very good point for you to start from. You're a school owner, you're a school administrator, you're a school manager, you're a consultant. These are places where you can plug in. and begin to see where we come in. And we will come in from time to time over a period of time, not just to bring the situation to you, but to tackle the situation. Luckily, we're getting information, we're getting concerns. Some people are even sending messages to say, please, could you address this topic? This is a topic of concern. Let's bring it up. Let's provide solutions. Let's hear what people have to say, the experts on this platform. Let's hear what they have to say. Some of us are having experts across the globe. Let's hear what people like Dr. Tomilola Oyekule has to say. People who are psychologists, wellness experts, like the likes of Nancy, the people who are experts in administration and administrative processes within the school space, people like Tomiwa, who's into child development and behavioral management, people like Dr. Lola Neke, who is into special needs, and so many people, Vivian David, awesome lady, who is doing great things, of course, within the early years space. These are people that have a voice, they have wisdom. But you see, what happens is that we've allowed our voices, we've allowed our wisdom, we've allowed the wealth of experience to be drowned by trend, to be drowned by intimidation online, to be drowned by cyberbullying, to be drowned by just paying attention to your own personal space and kingdom, your you, yourself, and I republic. And that has to change, because it is in trying to champion that then we begin to look at it and say, there's a lot of seriousness that needs to be placed. Some people need help, and that help, they need it ASAP, immediately. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. So from time to time, we'll begin to talk about the different level of verification. From time to time, we'll begin to talk about certain things that you can also engage us on. One of the things that I'd like to share in today's session is the place where Edvestigate will also be moving into trying to handle certain disciplinary cases. Because even when you listen to some of the challenges or the situations, we hear people say, oh, so and so happened in my school, so happened in my education organization, and this was how I handled it. And sometimes this thing become a scandal. We will try to arbitrate and try to step in, with the help of very different professional associates, to be able to also deal with some of these things. So it is important for us to know that we need to translate all the skills that we have, the expertise that we have, to not just be seen or perceived as a monument. We're building a brand, we're building a name, our faces on flyers. It's beyond that. This is something that can help even sustain the individual pursuits that we have. And one thing I've always been an advocate of is that if we know that we have solutions and answers, then the best thing for us to do is to put our money where our mouth is. We need to take steps, we need to take action, we need to move in a progressive manner to kind of deliver value beyond all these surface fluffs. We need to move beyond sensation. I know that we are people who love to gather, we are people who love to chat, we are people who love to embrace this and embrace that. But you see, some of the services, some of the solutions, some of the interventions that we're going to be carrying out has to go, and it has to run deep down, and so that's what Edvestigate is going to be championing. So if there are questions, if you have questions, yes, or if you have concerns, please try to drop it in the comment below, and just let's tackle some of these things so that we know that yes, this is the right step we're taking, and we're ready to work with as many people as possible. Like, I believe that this intervention is something that you and I should be proud of within the short term, within the mid-term, and especially within the long term. So it's going to happen. It started already. But then there's a link, there's a survey right after this broadcast. You could look at it again and try to register, and then we'll be communicating from time to time, and we'll be rolling out certain things. One of the things that we'll also be doing in the course of the week is what we call the do's and don'ts series. We believe that we need to equip people with the right level of information and the right level of access to knowledge, and then when we begin to know, as employer, as employee, we begin to know as professional and practitioners, what are the do's, what are the don'ts. How do we even take sanity and take it and break it into sequence? What exactly do we mean by sanity within the workplace? How do you treat your colleagues? How do you treat your superior? How do you treat your subordinates? all these things are step by step, areas and issues that need us to tackle, and Edvestigate will not stop at that. We'll also get into education administration and, talk about the issues that concern regulating education, talk about the issues that concern the regulators of education, and bring solutions as the case may be. I'm excited, always seeing faces online, faces that are here, who also do great things within the space. Great to have you guys here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm waiting for questions. If there are questions, please feel free to ask your questions now. This is Edvestigate Live. Once in a while, we will have it as together. I'm sure Ronke Posh would have loved to be here live and direct, but we're doing our best to ensure that every Sunday, without fail, the session takes place, the session holds. We'll definitely begin to, ensure that before time you're notified, you're aware of these things. Okay, Dr. Miller says, how can we identify the identity of individuals that work in educational space? How can we identify the identity? Now, that's like a play of words. Well, I would want to start from the place of employment and recruitment. One of the things that we are looking at is that we want to be able to harmonize data and make it accessible not just to people within a school association, but to people who are represented as people within the space. Because one of the things that the education system and the sector has suffered is the harmonization of data. And so for you to identify who an individual is, the first thing that we need to look at is from the area of background check. We need to know who the individual is, what the person claims to say, based on statutory documents, based on his biodata. And then we look at it from the point of reference, especially when the person has actually had to work before. Now, there are other aspects that also the solutions that we deploy. Once a school decides to take it as a culture and a practice and sign up and register, the school will know the processes to do before onboarding any particular person as a staff, for example, because that person would have to go through those verifications. We're going to do a footprint audit on that individual so that the person is not just coming from the blues. You're able to use that as a form of filtration process. Now, when it's not just an employee, we're talking about identifying. We have people who have precedents, whether you like it or not. There's a way to know that. And then, of course, there's profiling. Profiling also will help, to do that. And then, if need be, the extensive side of the verification, there might be need for some level of testing, which is more or less like as if you're having a polygraphic test and all that, something that would help us get to know if this person's information is truthful, and what if the person's a terrorist, what if the person's a serial killer, what if the person is a pedophile? We don't know, and these are things that we will need to know because so many things are happening. Thanks to social media, where sometimes we get to hear some of these things, but accurately there are many things that are also suppressed based on the brands in question, so we are going to be able to have opportunity to do that. And then for, of course, those who are not necessarily being employed, but those who are vendors or those who provide services, we've heard many stories that is just messy. You have people who pay for stuff and then people don't deliver stuff. You have people, and vice versa, So we want to be able to ensure that we don't think professionalism has to do with the color of skin. Where some people say it's only the whites that can be professional. That's not totally true. Professionalism is a product of system. It's not a product of race. It's not a product of color. It's not a product of accent. It's a product of system. And that's what Edvestigate is trying to solve. So once we're able to begin to love, appreciate, access, and accept systems in place, professionalism will naturally be a natural occurrence. We will see it happen from time to time. We will see it happen at all levels. And one thing about some of these things is, even if it's something you start, there's a growth opportunity. You move from one step to the other. You keep growing, you keep advancing in it. And that's the goal, that's the idea. That's the plan, and that's what we're looking at. That from the days coming, you begin to hear things, you begin to see things. There'll be calls for applications, there'll be programs, there'll be sessions like this, and of course, there'll be reports and surveys, that will help us ensure that we take this thing and tackle it at all areas and all angles. That's the goal that we are having, and we believe that with people like you, we'll be able to achieve much more, progress in the shortest possible time. That's our confidence, that's our belief, that's what we know, and that's what we hope for. So, any other questions? I hope that I've been able to answer that question, Dr. Tomi. And of course, we will work with you in the capacity, because sometimes some of the issues comes from the area of psychology and mental health or mental wellness. Sometimes people just take off and leave their employment or employer. Some people just take off and just do anything they like, because at that point they are not stable emotionally. So we need to understand that schools need to adopt a system and a culture that promotes even professionalism through their environment. An environment that is hostile to the workforce might actually make the workforce not comply to certain levels and tenets of professionalism. And so we'll be looking forward to working with you on that. So, are there other questions? I'd like to use the opportunity to thank everyone online. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Tomilola, for coming online. Nancy, great to have you here. Tomiwa, I'd like to thank Tomiwa. I'd like to thank Oluwaseun Fumi, Vivian Davids as well. Lucy, I'd like to thank you for coming online. We're meant to have this with Ronke Posh, but she's unavoidably absent. I believe if she's online and she's able to come in just before we have the final part of the session, I'm sure she'll have one or two things to say. So this session also is something that naturally will be on Instagram. But when I started the broadcast, I tried to explain that I've been trying to do everything to come online by 5 p.m. But I'm in a location that has a little bit of network challenges. But interestingly, we had a good signal, and I decided just to share some thoughts and my mind with you on the subject matter, just to further explain why Edvestigate is there for you, is there for us, is there to leverage on. So we will welcome in any form some level of suggestions or specific request on things that you'd like us to talk about, and we can start from the next session, which will be next Sunday. If there are areas you'd like us to specifically touch or tackle, please feel free to send a message to us. Feel free to tell us what's your mind, or what you're working on, or what you would like us to work with you on. But like I said, there's a link available out there. Just fill the link, and we will begin to communicate starting from this week with people who are ready to start their journey, to level of professionalism, level of expertise, and level of performance. Edvestigate is here for you. It's here to stay, and it's here to provide the best of service within the education sector. So ladies and gentlemen, friends out there, colleagues, experts, professionals, regulators, administrators, employers, employees, educators, teachers, regardless of whatever your title is, we are here to serve you. We're here to provide support. We're here to provide help. Please feel free to reach out to us and follow us on all our social platforms, and we will be glad to provide support and service as required, for you. And just a case for those of you I'm just seeing for the first time in the new year, well, seeing means we're live together. I'd like to use this medium to say a happy new year to you, to wish you the best of the year, to wish you the best of the month, the rest of January. I know that's almost 2 weeks into the year, but it's still not out of place to say Happy New Year to you. Wish you the best of this coming week, this week that we just got into. Wish you the best of your pursuit. Wish you the best of your programs. Wish you the best of your platforms. And please go out there, spread the word about Edvestigate, and we will be there to help you. Thank you very much. This is Rotimi Eyitayo, and I'm holding forth today. And I believe that I can speak the mind of Ronke Posh to say, have a great week. Have a blessed time. If you have questions, please feel free to send us messages online, and we will be ready and willing to be of help and support. Take care. Thank you very much, and have a nice time.